Oh, that makes me laugh. That makes me laugh. What makes me laugh? That picture of me. That picture of me makes me laugh. Oh, let's do this. Yeah. Hi. How's that light? It's okay. Okay. I'm having a jolly day. Jolly day. So far. And so much is happening. So much, I don't know, it's coming together. Uh, it's like, I don't know, like a launch day or something like that. When you have like this big ambition and it takes a long time to like through it. And then when the time finally comes, it's like so much is happening, but it's not out of nowhere. It's like coming from exactly where you came from. No? Okay, fine. It says unable to connect to chat. Please try again later. Oh, I wasn't really trying right now. Uh, it's October 22nd, 2019. And I don't know. I reckon it's an auspicious day for the 20 and the 19 and the 22 and the October. October is such a potent month. Like historically, anciently, it made up part of the first month. In ancient Egypt, the Thoth's month was the first month, and it started around the 9th of September-ish. I just didn't want to say 11. And it went for around 27 to 33 days because I didn't want to say 28 or 30. Anyways, it's the month where the veil is the thinnest. And I reckon it's because the sun is traveling through the constellation of Libra. And little known, I don't want to say fact, I want to say hypotheses, because I've only ever really come across it once in my own like perusings of all that's possible. But the first degree of Libra, or the 0th, which is the 30th degree of Virgo, is in some reckonings a kind of origins point for creation. I don't know, but it's always resonated with me. Always, being since I came across that information. And now just because you come across information doesn't in and of itself qualify it, except when you develop a strong or rather keen sense of your intuition and your connection with your like sovereign creator self, divinity. And I only say that in distinction from intuition, because intuition is largely a lot of those things, but it can also be more personal. So all that to say, information is infinite. Time and space are each equally traversable, just a matter of the medium and so the vehicle. And consciousness is a hell of a ship. Like, can you tell? I'm in a particularly goofy mood today. And I have a lot that's kind of come up to that I want to share or like just have conversations with is more what I mean. Uh, and I can't really pinpoint one or the other, mostly because they're not important. Okay, let me frame that a little bit. First of all, hi, I'm Elliot, and I'm really grateful for you hanging out with me. Because this is the spice of life. This is what it's about. I across my life so far have been a voracious consumer of understanding. And really, I can't blame me. I have a really wicked metabolism, and so much doesn't make sense. So much, at least, that I've been kind of taught or told superficially, just like it didn't connect. It does not compute. So I've just constantly been one that seeks further, looks deeper, um, and I would always classify that as looking into the world. So I would I would qualify like my type of learning to be like externally based, but with like my own greater understanding and my own like deeper comprehension regarding perception and uh, just how different perception can be between individuals. I've come to understand that though my frame of reference to myself is external, I, in retrospect, I'm just actually having fun with words and perspective and making myself like laugh. So if you're with me, holla holla. So in retrospect, my external gaze is all through is through an internal reflection. But it was so unconscious and innate by virtue of my unique and like birth and environment and choice points and just like points of relation that others, I just basically, if I were to like make it a bit like sour or morose or somber, I just didn't grow up with anything dependable external to me. My parents were never reliable when it came to dependency and knowledge or information or even reason. My father was never really in the picture, and when he was a liar. And my mother, God bless her, is supremely dependable in her like physical presence. Like she'll always be here for me to the best of her abilities. But really young. Unfortunately for us, her and I, she decided that I was smarter than her. And I mean like 7. So to answer why, instead I became that person. Whatever. And so all that to say, I just want to lend credence to you and to me and to all of us who seek to find our own meaning in things. And in a world really like suffused with bullshit and lots of misleading information, with one's growing trust in themselves and their own discernment, that even even fake information, when coming to you on your journey, on your quest for your own understanding, uh, at the peaks of divinity and creation, there is no untruth, right? All sounds, all noise, all symbols can retain and so offer the meaning that you seek, if you have the wherewithal to recognize it. That was all kind of convoluted, but hi, my name's Elliot. I make things hard. Oh dear. I'll give it a simple example. I watch a lot of I watch a lot of TV. I watch a lot of TV when I'm single, and and I don't have a lot of friends that I hang out with. Uh, I'm pretty cool with that, by the way. Uh, but it's like how I keep myself company. And more to what we were talking about, it's fascinating how streams of energy, streams of information can reflect, especially emotionally, opportunities for discerning truth. Like, I couldn't tell you the countless learnings that I've gained from like Japanese anime, which, even as I say, knowing myself, sounds kind of weird, because I would have never considered myself really one that um, that preferred that form of art and creativity style. But it's become more and more, and just cartoons in general, it's become more and more a reliable source. And let me tell you why. Because it's relevant to some of the random shit that I feel like talking about today. Uh, I think that the manipulation of our energy via these screens and uh, our mainstream media and the stories that we tell and the manner with which we ingest them, I'm inclined to believe that it has become so largely unconscious, even by controller energies, so as to not really be on purpose. All the war and shooting in video games, the crises we create in our violent media, the segregation that we create within the family units and within supposed racial distinctions and just our culture in general and how it's propagated in all the media that's popular. I'm inclined to believe that it's not so like maniacal and intentionally devious. Like there's not this particular mastermind behind many dark curtains being like, "Mwah, yes, yes, hate, steal, rape, kill each other. Yes, oh, I will eat that energy. Fear, fear." Maybe at one point. But time dissolves and love bonds. And polishes, purifies. And okay, I'm gonna jump to like quite abstract, but if you can follow me, I love you. And if you like doesn't quite follow and it's then I still love you. And I'm sorry if I can't make it easier in this moment. If you can imagine our timeline, us all together right now, in the ever present now, like a ripple in a lake, and the birth of our moment as consciousness, a drop of a pebble in an otherwise still pond, yeah? As it ripples outward, each preceding and then following drop can be its own timeline. Now, it's not precisely the same. It's all occurring at different times. So the stars are in different places. The planets are in different places. The minutia of our environment is different, but it still ripples the same way. And so as these waves become continuous, you can imagine that our time is like, as it drops, it's also dropping at a moment where a ripple has extended itself outward to the edges of the pond. It has rippled back towards the center. And then in the moment that it is re-rippling, almost like a restart, but it's not, it's continuous. Now, we are also joining it in that rippling. It's not happening as us. It's its own resonant timeline, but it joins us in it joins us by virtue of resonance in a kind of connected nowness where I might be sitting here connecting with you across the screen and exploring the maturation of my own like emotional and conscious and so physical evolution. There's like another version of a collection of similarities that in one way is me too, but in another way it's really not. It's like another version of a collection of these truths. And so our media, in a way, not only is a reflection of, like, say, what's passing through us is like an Atlantean ripple. I'm just making this shit up, but who knows? It could be exactly true. Is an Atlantean ripple, and in that Atlantean ripple, there is war and an overcoming, and maybe a great shift, where where love is being birthed to that timeline in a new way. And so we watch the Marvel movies of the Infinity Wars and Captain Marvel, and it's like super extraordinary. And we watch these ships and these powers and whatnot through the windows of our soul, our eyes. Yeah, we are perceiving, and so creating a kind of congruence between timelines. And as such, it's like we're participating. It's almost like we're there, because we are. We are continuous across times, in the ever-present now. But by virtue of our consciousness and our emotions, we become linked, because of what we're perceiving in our relationship to it. And so part of like the grand manipulation, which again, I digress, or not digress, but I maintain the distinct probability that it's not so conscripted, that it's more unconscious. It's more actually a reflection of a kind of, Star Wars Emperor type individual, but in another timeline. And by the time it gets to us, it's kind of watered down, and, it reflects itself in the decay and separation that we can perceive in at every really scale of our collective consciousness and collective environment. That these have been methods for recruiting energy towards these ends, these aims, in these other timelines. Because just because we don't know it's happening doesn't mean it's not happening. And I might be hypothesizing right now, and in this channel, on this channel, and anywhere in conversation, just as how I roll. When I speak of things that I know certainly, I say, I don't preface, I know this, I just say it. But if I don't know it certainly, I will mention, I don't know. And this kind of falls into the realm of like, I don't know, like I kind of know, but I wouldn't like go on TV and say, I know this. This is just me sussing out. Sussing out just how things are connected. And so in this way, if we were to become, as individuals and a collective, aware of this connection to the greater cosmos, not as some intangible theoretical aspect of being, but something that can be lived and experienced and so known with our own sense of certainty, then it becomes a realm in which we can play in. It becomes an energy source that we can so manipulate in a way, like, and I mean manipulate like I can manipulate this with my hands. And so maybe these other timelines with awareness are manipulating energies that exist in our realm of being. And maybe there are great wars being fought on the behalf of not just us, but of all the good and all the love and all that is and all that existence is. And if so, I reckon we're winning, because I feel great today. And if it is, and we're just being like rebirthed into a realm of awareness as far as this grand connecting schema, then I reckon that just as I love trees and mountains and lakes and birds and bees and just about all kinds of naturally occurring beauty living things, then maybe we're loved not necessarily just by like, you know, the one source creator coming from that direction, but rather like other manners of being, us in a way, that are aware of this Elliot and you. And so when we ask questions, you know, we don't necessarily need to type it and do a search bar request. It's much more efficient in this greater sea of interconnectivity to have it formed in thought as crystallized and so internally specific as we can manage, and then powered, given a Wi-Fi range, as it were, by virtue of the way that we feel about it. And that's love. That's like, creative intelligence, which I'm using as the same thing. Because when we are ultimately dismayed, when we are in despair, when we are fucking pissed off at injustice, to me, that's love, right? Like, to me, that's when I demand answers from the cosmos because of my like belly fire for righteousness on behalf of all the good in the world, all the gentle, all the innocent. It might not look like a hug, it may not look like a kiss, but that's love too. It's that creative, intelligent bonding and desire for peace and freedom and greater parameters thereof. Then when we, like, it doesn't matter, there's no fact or fiction beyond our own discernment. So today's a beautiful day because it's the 10th month with an 8th name and a double digit representation, a double digit of a 2 on a Tuesday, which is Mars's day. Did you know that? It is. And for me, that's, I don't know, I love Mars. I've always had a special kinship with it as a planet. And there's something about 22 and 20 and 19. It's like the only thing missing is 21. And that was yesterday. Or 1 and 2. Or 2 and 1. And that can be us too. Or that could be us as well. I'm going to change gears a little bit because I don't know, I'm just going with the flow. A couple of like sessions ago, or a few, where I was just jamming out, I sang I I tended to sing my favorite song, but I couldn't find it with like lyrics and shit. This is Coca-Cola. You're damn right. Over this last year, which is going on two almost, with all of this, the like hush push emerging melting pot of energies. Where it's like eat clean, eat high vibrational foods, eat this, eat that. I'm like, I have never in my life eaten more like sugar and like white flour and like just like what people would qualify as like junk. Like in my whole life, I've never eaten so junky, and yet with awareness, I've also probably never been more healthy. Not to say that like eating junk food will make you healthy. It's just that there's more. There's more to that, to everything that can be easily perceived, and that I mean I think like overarchingly. Because once something becomes easily perceived, like it's an invitation to look further. And when like it's the good surrounded by the good, it doesn't have to be appended to such urgency. Like loving relationship, it's like you don't need to rush. You don't need to know. It's not a demand. It can be like the slowest opportunity. Ooh, yummy, juicy. Oh, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. Anyway, so I felt like it because I'm like really vibing. Uh, it's my gear bag. Oh, owl. I'm gonna sing. I'm gonna re-sing that song because I really feel like it. And then I think I want to talk about money and how we're killing it, like destroying it, because it's not nice. It's not a nice thing. And that's kind of fucking obvious. So I'm gonna switch the mic over to this guy here, mostly because like I'm just like techie for the fun of it. Now is that working? Oh, I think so. Yeah. Yeah, I think so. Okay. I'm getting a green response. And also, it's like raining today. And the raindrops are like these like gorgeous, like crystal orbs of satisfied thirst. And this, in a persona of not a lot of favorite things, this I maintain is my favorite song. Is like my first favorite song, and it's stood the test of the sands of time. So I'm doing a little combo. I'm like, I don't really need to read the lyrics, but it's interesting how, I don't know, sometimes you don't remember. And then I love reading the lyrics to songs that I fucking like love and sing all the time and being like, huh, that's not what I think I soul. But that's divine, kind of talking about what we were talking about earlier. Let's do it. You cannot quit me so quickly. Is there no open you for me? No corner you could squeeze me. but I got all the time for you now. The space between their tears we cry is the laughter keeps us coming back for more. The space between the wicked lies we tell and hope to keep safe from the pain. But will I hold you again? These fickle little words confuse me. Like, will it rain today? Waste the hours with talking. These twisted games we're playing. We are straying our lives with warring hearts. What wild-eyed beast you be? The space between the wicked lies we tell and hope to keep safe from the pain. Will I hold you again? Will I hold? Look at us spinning around in the madness of a roller coaster. You know you went off like a devil in the middle of a crowded room. And all we can do, my love, is hope we don't take this ship down. The space between where you're smiling high is where you'll find me if I get to go. The space between the bullets and the firefly is where I'll be hiding, waiting for you. The rain that falls, splashing your eyes. Sadness down the window into the space between our wicked lives is where we hope to keep safe from pain. Now take my hand, 'cause we're walking out of here. Oh, right now, love, yeah, love. Love is all we need. Here in the space between what's wrong and right is where you'll find me. Hiding, waiting for you. In the space between your heart and mine is a space we'll fill. Between your heart and mine we'll fill with all the time. And we'll call it me and you, or love, or just the space between two. Funny. Oops. What's that? Oh, so dramatic. Oh, cool. I'll like pause it because that's not anything. But it's 30 Seconds to Mars singing that song, Stay, which I think is pretty fucking cool. Yeah. All right, because I want to hold the mic. I'm going to switch it back. Yeah, and now we're going to get serious. It's jasmine tea and peppermint. I have no idea, man. I'm just goofy. It's 11:08. I love those numbers too. Yeah, I guess this is going to be a little bit of a vent rant or something like that, which is probably a sharing of frustrations that you also feel. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for being you. Thank you for feeling the way that we feel. All right. Not for the first time during these last year or so of extreme trials and testings of faith, not just in all, but in friendships and families and the willingnesses of others to rise to their own kind of like, I don't know, opportune crisis points where it's like, I don't know, just fucking overcome the hard. Anyways, I've just, it's been really super apparent people's ignorant dependency on the misperceived stability that is currency and money and savings accounts and investments and their jobs and all that, all those trappings of their clearly unhappy lives. Like it doesn't take much looking into to see that that even the false paradigm of financial stability is we're living at a time of obvious collapse. And the way what I'm even referring to can be likened to all those times that the financial like arena has collapsed recognizably in the past, like the Great Depression and in 2008, or you know the war efforts, or the Great Recession of what is it, like maybe the 80s or 1980 or some bullshit like that. Well, it's all just so fucking contrived, but even, you know, inside the obvious or not manipulation of it as a system, like, you know how like in times in the past, people thought they were rich and then everything just flipped on them and they had nothing. And then the world had to kind of rebuild itself. So it's like happened before. It's clearly happening again. But it's clearly happening again as like a best attempt at the old regime's maintenance of like faux order, right? Of faux direction and control. It's just like, do it again. Rein it all in. Collapse everything. Recollect everything as collateral. And so kind of like resecure the ownership of the lots that is real materiality in the hands of fewer and fewer, under the auspices of like debt reclamation or government privatization or blah blah blah. And yet people like they still they and I guess this is just so outside of my own inclination to explore and act. But if I'm going to put my faith, if I'm going to put my sense of security, my trust in anything, I'm just gonna make sure that I can, you know, like it's like this is my security. I'm gonna make sure that shit's secure, not just because it's got secure in the name. uh, and yet, uh, and yet, people are still so willfully ignorant of the truth of their own enslavement. I want to talk a little I want to use words that are a little less like bipartisan or like blaming or anything like that. It's like what's occurring now very potently is the realization that we do not need 95% of the goods and services that we pay for, either with our taxes or with our boredom or our sociality. And inclusive of such a large percent, like, well, what about education, Elliot? What about healthcare? What about those things? Because you're right. I still want things to be maintained. I still can't do everything. But the truth is that there's no such thing, for example, as an electrician or a plumber or an elevator serviceman or a construction worker. See, the brilliance of each of us as a humanity is we are capable of doing all of those things. One person can learn to do multiple things and act in multiple spheres, and so choose how and where and what they act upon by virtue of the communal need. See, it's a very real and so visceral revolution that the world is going through. And it's, again, lazy thinking to think that a utopian world, or just a peaceful one, is void of things like technology or global travel or all the things that we just assume exists by virtue of the great global machine. This plane brought to you by your enslavement. When it's really just not. It's not true at all. Industry, I hate that word, but let's reclaim it in terms of like each of our own industrious nature to create and facilitate that which we only at first imagine is not consumed by the elevation of a more intelligent and emotionally responsible paradigm encompassing the greater aspects of our world or collective agreements. It empowers them, and we don't need these national representations i.e. government, i.e. Multinational corporations, fucking any corporation whatsoever, to manage all of the best possible. It's and that's part of why the world is shifting in the way that it is, because it's just so bloody apparent how unnecessary all that is, right? The kind of fad word, which I approve, is decentralization, right? Decentralization of power in the form of off-grid technology, the decentralization of banking in the form of cryptocurrency, for instance, the decentralization of anything and everything at the emergence of true networks of peoples, just people like literally you and I, and as necessary across space in the form of not an internet but of similar technology that doesn't entrap us and doesn't exploit our privacy, which is our right to choose, really, how we as beings of energy, and even if it's just like work energy, what we're used for, like, right? We're allowed to choose how we are used. It's just freaking apparent to anybody that like is passionate enough and has the wherewithal to act. And it doesn't have to be everybody. Everyone is different. We all have our roles to play, and it is inextricably linked to the purpose of our soul, which can never be unchosen. It is a manifestation of one of the, if not the first kind of distortion. If by distortion I just mean like a lump of clay distorted becomes a sculpture. It's no longer a lump of clay, and you're distorting how it naturally occurs so as to create something, and to the eye of the beholder, which is beautiful and representative of not just the lump of clay, but something that was in the clay and also unmanifest. This is creation. This is like love. This is opportunity. This is free will. That we live as cogs in a really stupid machine that doesn't actually make things easier, that doesn't actually make things happen. It makes things not happen. And we need it less and less, because you don't need to go to med school to be a doctor. You need to learn. You don't need to go to school for any of this bullshit, because school is not a thing in and of itself. It's a facility of learning, and school for a long time hasn't been a facility of learning. It has been a facility of indoctrination and miseducation, and that's not fucking conspiracy theory, right? Like, I invest myself entirely in the truth and knowledge, and so I can affirm how erroneous just about every discipline of science is, and especially medicine. And you don't have to be 100% wrong to be a lie, which is how we live in such a defunct world, where so many of us can kind of get along but not get along, and how, because free will can never be removed, but you can kid free will if you hamper it, if you fetter it. You don't chain your prisoners to the wall. You train your prisoners to the ball, so they can kind of move around. They might even be able to like move further distances if they build the strength to carry the ball. And so they're prisoners, but they're no more. And they're no more free than if they were chained to the wall. But by framing the prison walls, by framing the binding to the false, you can get the prisoners to do things that they wouldn't be able to do if you chained them to the wall. And that's the world that we live in. That's the misappropriation of learning. Right? We don't like. I don't know. There's just so much that it's like if you just keep going back towards simple, those are the opportunities of complexity. Right? Complicated is a artifact of enslavement, which is why we have all these disciplines of science instead of just like exploration. And then I'll kind of close with this because I'm feeling the vibe, and it's an exciting day. There's lots going on, and I've got a lot of things to throw away. It's like a vague example because, again, I don't do gossiping, and I don't want to speak to others that aren't present, especially when I don't mean them personally. But I have an example of there being a need. Someone was like funding something, and then and they had so much left, and then another person was like, you know what, I'll finish it, kind of like in that like baller sense. And I don't blame them in their kind of like their attribution to self-worth and ability to be able to do that. But the short-sightedness is the world's wealth holders at this present day, all of which are holding on tightly, or not. Actually, I don't know. And I said all, so probably not all, but are under the influence of holding on tightly to these resources that have like an expiry date. And I believe in peace. I believe in space to do your own thing. I believe also in power, like literal, of the good, and the bullying of the good by virtue of guns, by virtue of like the absconsing of our communal and personal authority, and policing, and to these like to military anything, which is just like giving away our freedom. It's like, I can't defend myself. Let's get something else to defend yourselves. It's like when you have powers that you like interpret and like in your own like sense of here I am in relation to everything else, but give the responsibility to protecting you for your life and your well-being, and against energies, methods, individuals, groups, whatever, that would do you harm, but they don't know you. You are no one to them. There's no family. There's no community. You are a part of their job. So at best, you satisfy a quota And at worst, you satisfy a quota by virtue of not being served. Uh, but all of that falls so far behind uh, the lack of love, the lack of knowing, of connection, where we're defending each other, where we're fighting for each other, and uh, and we're not afraid of losing our jobs. We're not afraid of losing our sense of freedom because there are no jails. Um, there are no jails for the people of there are no jails for our families. You know, we're not going to just follow the letter of a law when um, if we just all sat around and talked about it, we could come to understand each other's perspectives and then satisfy all all assenting and dissenting parties. And that's not even so far fetched. That's reasonable when you remove policies and laws and barriers for barriers of resources and rights. It's like just rights. You don't. There's no piece of paper that can take away or give uh, any right ever. That's just people. And there's people using vehicles for excuses, and there's not. Anyways, to get back to the money, uh, there's a really wicked opportunity for. I want to venture. It's got to be a rare amount of people, by virtue of what it takes to acquire money and what it like takes away. But there's got to be, I believe, uh, just like I've been in the divine and cosmic position to be who I am and what I am, to do what I have done on like the grandest and most like extraordinary scales, uh, in my perception and in like as much as I can share, like my shared perception of all of us together. I know that there are those in those exact same circumstances that have equally overcome their um, differently but parallel challenges and obstacles when it comes to their own soul purpose and their own soul life and their own willingness to detach from evil, right? The reversed and inverted regression towards what was and retaining what is, as opposed to the growth and the progress and like the balance, like the universal balance to entropy, which is life and cosmic intelligence, love, that that is looking around and being like, you know what, all of your money is going to be worthless. Period. Maybe you can retain its value and the continuously secluded and isolated parts of society that won't let go, and so are living less harmoniously, right? And it's not doesn't take a rocket scientist. It doesn't take any kind of scientist. When you live in a debt-based like currency economy, you owe somebody. All your money belongs to somebody else. All your money belongs to somebody else, and all it has to do is give you a reason to want it back. But then, like, But we need these things. We don't even need shit. I am like loath, or rather reluctant, to call it reputation, because even that has this fucked up, like, likes kind of connotation or whatever. But it's like, let's just take it down a notch and being like, you're a good person, so people like you and they love you and they want to help you and you want to help them. It's that simple. It's like interesting to, because I can see people in my own life who hoard these fictitious emblems of value, and they're like not valuable people. I'm thinking particularly of a few who are like, yeah, you're bad for the world. You don't have to dump toxic waste into the ocean to be bad for the world. You just have to be entirely selfish and exclusively self-serving and other denying, loveless. And this like false sense of security that they endure to the best of their efforts by like numbing themselves with alcohol and drugs and mainstream media, so as to not just like don't become aware of how fucked I am. So fucked. Because when it all comes crashing down in their own way, I'm not necessarily saying it's going to crash in some kind of recognizable way. I don't give a fuck. I'm much more concerned, and I'm readily like participating in the emergence of an actual economy, a human economy, something that will last the ages, because it will be like intrinsically adapting to the love and the needs of all of us. And so even our worst, there'll be room for the worst of us, so that we can go back down into the shadow. We can go back down into the dark, and things can go get worse again, but they never need to be so fucking cruel. We can leave that for another universe. We've checked that box as far as we're concerned. We have that opportunity. We are creators, and we're co-in it, yo. It's just really interesting to see like the uber wealthy's relationship to that, and it'll be really interesting to see who, and I want to say they might not, I don't think that they'll be famous, because really wealthy people know that an aspect, one of the glories of wealth is privacy. How they will and how and high and what kind of population of that type of that character in this grand like play will rise to the assertion that their own value doesn't depend on that, and that and we're all allowed to feel valuable, and we're all allowed to pursue our own value, in pursuit of their own value, use that kind of that like clearly failing tool to facilitate not only the death of it, but also the birth of what will be everlasting. And that doesn't need to be immortal. That needs to be transcendent, which is the opportunity of every family. I go on that. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for joining me. And until again, embrace any kind of excitement that you might have for your life, because it's there, swimming in the ether. And if the opportunity to believe in it, I don't know, it's present like a gift. I love you, and I love all of us, and I especially love someone. And you know what? You can let that be you, because someone especially loves you. Namaste. The space between.